Hi all. So, a brief video today. I wanted to talk about this idea that too much of a good thing is still too much. So, I'm getting ready for solstice. For those of you in the northern hemisphere, we're about to move into summer solstice, the longest day of the year. I'm holding ritual immersion for that, which you can see more information about below. And you're welcome to join, of course. What we're going to be talking about are a couple of the sensibilities from her mystery school that I want to bring forward to focus on at solstice. Has to do with this idea, this reality of excess, just simple excess. So at this time, solstice, summer solstice, when the day is at its longest, the light is at its brightest and longest. There are a couple of things that to me are true. There's this opportunity to consider what kind of stamina does it take to meet a day that's long, that is that long. What kind of soul stamina does it take to shine from the beginning of your life until the end, right? So we're fortifying alliances in this ritual immersion series, and the invitation here is to fortify the alliance with the courage that endures. What is it in us that endures through the long days? And that's not to even say that they're not beautiful, but they're long, right? Life is long. These days that are long, these moments that are long, these journeys that are long, there's something often unconsciously that helps us to endure, right? There's something that keeps rising up. There's something that moves us past often what we think we have to give, that asks us to shine, right? This day that is long, the bright, the light, the visibility, right? The sunshine. This is about shining, being seen, and a fullness. So anyway, a few of the teachings that we're going to be working with for that immersion, I wanted to bring forward, and just because to me they're extremely fundamental, and but they require consistent remembrance. And the first has to do with the reality that too much of a good thing is still too much. That excess, if we boil things down to, okay, whatever it is, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, if it's too much, it's still too much. When there is excess of anything, what we're left with is digesting that, or attempting to digest it, attempting to integrate it, attempting to navigate it. What I've seen in myself and in a lot of the women that I work with, there are so many good things that could be done. There are so many good things to do. You could do yoga, you could do meditation, you could, do this program, that program, you could start a gratitude journal, you could pray more, you could go exercising, dance, whatever. There's this sense often, and it comes from a hypervigilance. It comes from the place that it comes from is what creates the excess, is that a lot of us get into this feeling that we're broken. Something needs fixing badly, immediately, quickly, with urgency. And we move even into those things that are so good for us from that place. So in this understanding that excess leads to depletion, on a very fundamental, just kind of natural law level, if there is excess, it will create depletion, right? In us, mostly because if we're navigating excess, we're using energy in order to do that. And anything more than what we really need, more than what really flowers us and brings us into fruition, will be excess. So I would invite you to consider that in your world. Just, all right, how do you know what is good for you? Is that it feels good, right? It And how do you know the timing of what's good for you? And how much of what the thing is that's good for you is that it doesn't push you into excess. And I know that's an inquiry for each of us to make, but it's also this invitation to simplify, especially at this time when the days are the longest. There's the most movement. In a way, it's the most yang time. It can be seen as the most yang time of the year. We're moving into big outward movement, especially in relationship to kind of movement out of quarantine time in certain ways. So there's this big movement. And in order to sustain ourselves inside of movement like that, we have to stay rooted, nourished and resourced in the yin field, or just in this kind of, in the nourishment and the simplicity of being that just is, right? The summer solstice, everything's kind of happening, everything's ripening. My bees are going crazy. I'm eating things out of the garden now. The cherry trees are blossoming. Everything is just in motion, and it's in this expression of beauty. Every expression of beauty is a yang expression, right? So it's this gorgeous fullness. And the question that we're going to be asking ourselves in the ritual immersion is how to move into that in a way where the abundance, the fullness saturates, infuses, nourishes, rather than actually depleting. It's a really important distinction to make, because many of us live lives that are full of, well, I'll speak for myself. I've lived a life that is full of many, many beautiful things that I'm so grateful to be a part of, and things that I believe in, things that my heart and soul are in. And yet, when it becomes too much, I can't feel myself in it. And in a way, that's how we know when we're in excess rather than in fullness. We can no longer feel ourselves, and we can no longer feel the thing that's happening. You can't really take things in when you're in excess, because there's a limit to how much we can digest and integrate. So we'll stop actually absorbing the beauty, the enoughness of the moment. So one of the teachings from her mystery school, or one of the sensibilities, is that excess leads to depletion. And depletion leads to excess. When we are depleted in these inner kind of reservoir places, when we're a little heart sick, or we're a little depleted and we haven't nourished our soul, we haven't kind of settled back from all the push and pull to just feel ourselves, a depletion, a deficit begins to accumulate there, and that will often lead us to excessive action, right? So that's often what leads us to doing 20 things to feel better, rather than the one thing that would actually fill the cup, right? 20 good things rather than the one actually appropriate, timely good thing. So that's one of the things we'll be working with in the ritual immersion, is a practice to work with excess and depletion, and to get to know that in a fundamental kind of subtle attunement in our bodies. The other sensibility that twins that for me is that overexposure leads to amnesia. So excess leads to depletion, overexposure leads to amnesia. We consider that in this time of solstice, because at the time of solstice, and when the sun is so bright for so long, there's a way in which it's a shining time. It's a moving time. It's a being seen kind of time. And so then how we are seen, how we choose to be seen, is something that we're considering in this immersion. And when I say that overexposure leads to amnesia, what that means is that overexposure, kind of putting ourselves out, being seen, I would say too much, or you could say by people, by things, by places, by situations that can't even really see you. It leads to amnesia over time, right? This to me is tied to this understanding and the way of holding ourselves as the treasure house, the way of holding ourselves as truly something that someone, a being, a presence that is meant to be approached and seen by the worthy. The worthy meaning those who can actually see, those who can actually receive what we are, those who won't target us for whatever we are, right? So there's something that we're going to be considering, especially in our time of social media, especially in our time of kind of, there's been an interesting, I'd say, imbalance towards portraiture and crystallized identities, where there's this pressure to know who we are and to show who we are, to know what our opinion is, to know what we believe, and then to know what morals that means we stand for, and what that means about our character, and to know who we like to have sex with and what that means we are. All these things, right? To know that we're a woman and that's what this means, and this is how we're going to show what that means. There's this there's an overexposure in that because there's portraiture in it. There's a push. See me. I'm going to show myself to you. I'm going to prove myself. I'm going to defend. I'm going to identify myself. I'm going to, there's an overexposure, and what it will lead to is amnesia of your essential self, right? We will forget who we really are, like as a state of being. I hear this from a lot of women who have kind of gone through a period of time of recovering sexuality and sensuality, and in that period of time they've explored or experimented in kind of being more seen as a sexual being, more kind of displayed in their erotic nature, and they recognize that there was a certain empowerment in that. And then often as that goes on, it'll start to feel wrong. And it's not because it is wrong or that eroticism is wrong. It's because in the overexposure, they begin to forget that they're a treasure house. They begin to forget the specificity and the preciousness and the sacred nature of their body, right? Because it's being made available to everyone. It's being overexposed, and in that is an amnesia. So, these are just things for you to consider in your own world. I mean, many of you, including myself, I hear all the time, that there's this interesting love-hate relationship with social media. There's an interesting love-hate relationship with marketing yourself. There's an interesting love-hate relationship with kind of speaking your truth, or all these things. And what I would say is that one thing to consider with that is it may just be that there's a certain overexposure in the way that it's happening, that it's not the thing itself. It's obviously not speaking your truth or being seen or bringing your gifts to the world or whatever that is. But if you are overexposing, you will start to almost like I experience it again, it's like a depletion. It's a little bit like something's getting rubbed off or dimmed or something. And I just get what happens is over time, I get more and more kind of preoccupied and invested in this portrait of myself, this expression of myself, so that I start forgetting to rest into my true nature, just what I am, without any need to define or express what that is, just the simple need to be that. And in a way, if you want to look at this for a moment, we often do in her mystery school, because in the school we work with multiple different threads. One of them is pretty strongly Taoist, and we're looking at this idea that a true yang movement, so like here we are in summer solstice, for instance, or almost, this true yang movement of the fullness, the beauty, the abundance, the dripping cherries off the tree, and everything, everything in creation and fruition, right? That is made true by the root that it maintains in the yin, or in the still, the dark, the earth, the deep. And so here at summer solstice, the invitation is to take a moment, check ourselves. Let's take a minute. Have we lost our root? If you're watching this and you've watched this far, I would just invite you to have a moment and just ask, have I lost my root? Am I in excess, and where? And can you release that? With an awareness towards depletion, towards the reality that when you release excess, even if it's all the things that are good for you, when you release excess, when you kind of soften back from portraiture and being seen and all that is, right? To just be in your own inner privacy, feeling what you are, not even needing to articulate to yourself what you are, just allowing yourself to be the mystery, the unspoken, the sensed and felt presence that you are. All of that is going to fill a deeper reservoir that wants and needs to be full as we shine forth and as we move into these long days, these long expressions, these experiences of being seen, right? my desire, both with the ritual immersion and just in this conversation with you right now, is for just all of us to remember together that making sure the deeper reservoir is nourished is what allows for full expression to be in balance and authentic, and to make sure that it's aligned with its original intention, right? Its root intention. And that can be a challenge at a time, either seasonally or just at a solstice kind of young, big expression time in our lives. The challenge there is to remember to consciously, with discipline, pull back for a minute, release excess, cut it away, simplify, ask, what's the least I can do right now? And then only do that. And that in that, you're going to start to gather your essence back to yourself. You're going to gather energy. And you're going to make sure that your roots are strong, that the deeper reservoirs are full in you, so that you don't burn out, which is the danger of a kind of solstice, big young expression time, is that it will burn itself into incineration, right? It will kind of express and expand until it expands, into complete dispersion. Anyway, so that's my thought for you today. Too much of a good thing is still too much. And just enough of a good thing is going to saturate your being, and you'll actually be able to feel it. And I want that for you. I want us all to be able to receive what blessing is here for us, especially in times of fruition. All right, if you want to join me, we're going to be having this solstice seasonal ritual immersion. Over solstice, obviously, we come together for an hour and a half to work, to kind of go into a deeper exploration of some teachings and practices from the school, and we then go in our own separate ways into personal ritual, each in our own lives, over the weekend, and then we come back together and share about what we gathered and what we have each learned, and what happened. So it's been beautiful. This is the fifth, actually, in a full cycle of 8 through the year. You can join for one, or you can join for all the next 4. I'll put the link below. Blessed be.